So I operate in the kind of public policy space of cyber policy, and it's always pretty intense this time of year. A lot of governments and think tanks and that sort of thing have a lot of their conferences in the run up to Christmas. So it's always a bit of an insane run in the 2 months up to Christmas, and then we all collapse in a big heap on the 25th of December.
Yeah.
So I kind of, my background is very much in kind of public policy, government relations, that sort of thing. So I've been doing that for many, many years now, and spent quite a lot of time working across different organizations, across different sectors, understanding the policy issues, helping organizations navigate that. So literally everything from energy to transport to kind of broader tech, and working for little companies and big companies, both in-house and as a consultant. Then eventually ended up NCC Groups, the kind of UK headquartered global cybersecurity firm, and they kind of had a specific role within their government affairs. So I joined maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I honestly feel like I have found my absolute cultural home when it comes to operating within cybersecurity, and I will never leave the sector, I'm sure, because it's such an awesome space to be working in terms of the decisions that governments are making and how much it's impacting how we can all operate in cyberspace, but also some of the standards and stuff that we have to kind of comply with across the board as organizations, and how quickly kind of the space is moving, and also just all of the really awesome, very clever people that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis, and the stuff that they're doing being kind of genuinely beneficial and for the greater good of a more secure cyberspace. So yeah, it kind of ticks all the boxes in terms of purpose and a space that's evolving so rapidly, never getting bored, continuously learning, and really feeling like within my kind of current role, having the opportunity to make that link between policymakers and politicians and government and the world of cybersecurity, and often acting as a bit of a translator, I guess, between those two worlds, because they speak very different languages a lot of the time. And I think it points at a challenge that I have in my day job, which is that governments move pretty slowly and like legislatures, and when they're looking to legislate or regulate, kind of a painfully so slow process, because we are operating in this space and we're also used to operating in a space that is evolving so quickly, and that we're having to move quickly to keep up with it. I mean, there's a kind of long-standing campaign that we're running in the UK, for example, to update the Computer Misuse Act, which is kind of our equivalent of CFAA, and to provide better legal protections for security researchers. And brilliant progress, but it's taking years to do that, because it takes such a long time to get government and kind of policymakers up to speed with the issue and looking to kind of prioritize it when they're looking to balance kind of other things that are often in the news. And that piece of legislation now is 35 years old. It's the main piece of legislation which governs cybercrime in the UK, and the fact that it hasn't necessarily been updated very much at all in those 35 years is just complete madness when we think how far we've come in those 3.5 decades.
And like, that's the problem that I have, is that the legislation does not evolve as quick. And so we put these rules in place that kind of almost don't mean anything for the most part, in my opinion. And then, when companies get breached, I mean, what are we finding Meta? We're finding Meta like what, $20 billion? I mean, there's some mathematician at Meta that does the calculation of, oh, okay, we'll make that back in 2 days. Yeah, we could pay the 20 billion. Like, it doesn't matter, right? It's inconsequential. Are you seeing the discussions around that at all in the political circles?
Yeah, definitely. I think principally a lot of this discussion is being driven at the moment out of the US in terms of what does offensive cyber look like in this kind of current environment, and to what extent do democratic governments need to work more closely with the private sector on ensuring that we do have the right offensive cyber capabilities in place, and where does the kind of line get drawn between what should remain the prerogative of the state and where should industry play a role, and kind of what does that look like within an ethical framework.